You wake up to the softest sound in the world, your child breathing beside you. There's clean water in the kitchen, medicine in the cabinet, a doctor you can call, and a hospital waiting somewhere nearby. Your child gets a fever, and within minutes, you're checking a thermometer, calling a pediatrician, or reaching for medicine. Now, erase all of that. You are a parent in ancient Egypt. Your baby is burning with fever. The Nile is weeks away, and nobody has a germ theory, antibiotics, or a modern hospital. So how did you keep your children alive? The answer is surprisingly human. First, you started protecting the child before the child was even born. Pregnancy and birth were dangerous in ancient Egypt, and surviving delivery was only the beginning of the problem. Evidence from the Lahun medical papyrus, dating to around 1800 BC, contains treatments and instructions connected with pregnancy and childbirth. Ancient Egyptians also used special birth bricks and protective objects around mothers and newborns. But here's what nobody tells you. Ancient Egyptian parents weren't simply helpless people waiting for the gods to decide what happened. They had practical knowledge, accumulated over generations, mixed together with medicine, ritual, and beliefs about supernatural protection. A newborn could be surrounded by spells, amulets, and protective objects because nobody could see bacteria or viruses. They could only see that babies sometimes became mysteriously sick and died, and that made every birth feel like a victory. Then came the most important survival tool of all, milk. For the first months of life, your baby's best defense was breastfeeding. In Egypt's hot climate, breast milk provided nutrition while reducing a baby's exposure to contaminated food and water. If a mother couldn't breastfeed, wet nurses became an important alternative, and ancient Egyptian evidence even records attempts to deal with problems producing enough milk. Think about that for a second. There was no formula aisle, no sterilized bottle, no pediatric nutrition chart. If your mother couldn't feed you, another woman might. Wet nursing was especially important when a mother died during childbirth, and wealthy Egyptian families could employ dedicated wet nurses for their babies. Some Egyptian depictions even gave these women an unusually honored status. That wasn't luxury, that was survival. And then your baby had to survive everything else. Ancient Egyptian medical texts show that parents and healers had a surprisingly broad collection of treatments for illnesses, injuries, and childhood problems. The Ebers papyrus, usually dated to around 1550 BC, contains hundreds of medical prescriptions and includes material concerning children and breastfeeding. But medicine wasn't just medicine. An Egyptian healer might combine a physical treatment with a spell, because the boundary between the natural and supernatural was completely different from yours. Some remedies probably did little, while others may have provided genuinely useful relief through ingredients, cleaning, bandaging, or simple care. Here's the part nobody talks about. Sometimes the treatment wasn't the important part. Someone staying beside the sick child mattered. Someone feeding them mattered. Someone cleaning them mattered. Someone noticing that their condition was getting worse mattered. Ancient parents couldn't kill every infection. They could still provide care. And unfortunately, some children simply didn't make it. Archaeology makes that painfully clear. At Lahun, a major Middle Kingdom settlement dating roughly from 2025 to 1700 BC, archaeologists found infant burials beneath house floors. At Deir el-Medina, a New Kingdom workers' village near Thebes, infant burials have also been discovered. These remains remind you that childhood was a dangerous stage of life, not the protected period you know today. At the Kelis II cemetery in Egypt's Dakhla oasis, researchers studied hundreds of infant and child remains from roughly AD 100 to 360 and found evidence of disease, nutritional stress, and seasonal patterns of childhood mortality. The numbers weren't just statistics. Each skeleton was somebody's child, and that changes how you should think about ancient Egypt. Because despite the enormous gap between your life and theirs, the emotional problem was almost identical. Your child coughs, you worry. Your child stops eating, you panic. Your child finally sleeps peacefully again, you breathe. That instinct didn't require modern medicine. It was already there. Ancient Egyptian parents protected children with breastfeeding, wet nurses, food, shelter, medical remedies, protective rituals, and constant attention. They couldn't control disease, but they learned how to stack every advantage they had against it. And that's the strange thing about survival. It wasn't one magical Egyptian invention. It was thousands of tiny decisions made every day. You feed the baby, you keep the child warm, you clean the wound, you watch the fever, you try again tomorrow. And sometimes, despite everything, you lose. That's the uncomfortable truth behind childhood in ancient Egypt. Keeping children alive wasn't guaranteed by clever medicine or divine protection. It was a constant battle against a world where birth itself was dangerous, and the first 5 years could be the most uncertain years of your life. Now go back to your bedroom. The room is quiet, the air is comfortable, your child is sleeping safely, and somewhere nearby there's clean water, medicine, electricity, and a doctor who understands what a fever means. Your ancestors had almost none of that, but they had something remarkably similar to what you have. They were terrified of losing their children, and they loved them enough to fight anyway. Modern medicine changed survival. It didn't invent love.